All right, buddy, time to take a look at the three things that each of these teams needs to do, the Cleveland Browns and New Orleans Saints, in order to get a win. You got Jeff Lloyd, locked on Browns, myself, Ross Jackson, locked on Saints. And of course, we are brought to you, as all crossover Thursdays are, by our friends over at PrizePicks. Don't forget, download that PrizePicks app and enter that promo code locked on NFL to get $50 instantly when you play your first $5 lineup. All right, Jeff, what are the three things the Browns need to do to get a win here in New Orleans?
Certainly, it's going to be offensive balance. One, it's going to keep your defense off the field a little bit. I think a lot of people thought when Nick Chubb came back, all of a sudden the run game was going to come back. It kind of showed you that it is basically a team issue between the running backs. It's just not necessarily working. It's just something you need to do here. You certainly don't want Jameis Winston going out each and every week, throwing the ball 40 times. When the roller coaster player gets that many opportunities, sometimes the roller coaster is going to go off the rails. Defensively, the Browns missed tackles last year, but the difference was there was so many more hats to the ball. So you didn't really notice the fact that maybe a tackle was missed, because guess what? Within the same 1 yard, there was another player there. Now it's a lot of guy and it's one-on-one, and it's heartbreaking missed tackles, because it's not, oh, he got another yard and a half. It's, we're talking 7, 8, 9, 10. And those are your bad
familiar, Saints fans.
And that's when you get 10 other guys looking over and you get the hands on the head, and then you get because everybody knows how crucial and difficult it is. And the last one here. Now, look, Saints haven't had theirs yet. The Browns are just coming off of theirs. Where are you? Because most of the time when you're playing successful, you don't want the bye week. The last thing anybody wants to do is leave the building and get away. A, you're having fun. B, you're enjoying each other. You see, you're winning. When you're 2-7 and you're on the bye week, it's kind of almost like, well, all right, what are we doing in the off season? What are our plans? Is this help or does it hurt? And when you're 5 games under 500, it's really tough, because basically you're saying, well, maybe we're still alive if we go perfect, but we already went 2-7. So how do we believe we're now going to go 8-0? So that's the thing. It's a mental side of it. And when you're dealing with 53 individuals on a roster, it's certainly really difficult to see where everyone's head's at. Because, this team has players like Joel Bitonio who, hey, this could be the final 8 games ever. And then you've got, younger first and second year players where, I want to go have a career like Joel Bitonio. I'm dialed in 110%. So it's certainly going to be interesting. And look, there's a lot of clamorings, what's going on with the Browns right now, and the disappointment certainly, of where the season is at. I'm sure everybody's kind of walking on some pins and needles. So, going out there and look, 53 playing as one and looking like a, formidable franchise that knows what they're doing here over the last 8 weeks is probably the best way they can kind of close this out.
Yeah, absolutely. I love the bye week point, because it almost feels like the bye week's actually coming at the wrong time for New Orleans. Like, especially if they end up winning this game somehow, and then they string together 2 wins coming off the head coach change and all this other stuff, then you got to go to the bye week. All that momentum could potentially be gone. So you got to work really hard to kind of bridge that gap. So that's a really great observation there. I thought, honestly, going into this game with the bye week being after this game, that if the Saints hadn't fired Dennis Allen after that Carolina Panthers game, that this was going to be the game. This was going to be the one that was potentially going to be the nail in the coffin for him. But of course, we're beyond that conversation now. All right, so looking at what the New Orleans Saints need to do to get a win here, I'll echo yours a little bit. You brought up the run game and being balanced. The Saints have to limit that, right? You got to limit as best as you can when it comes to Nick Chubb. And listen, Jeff, when I say limit, I'm not even saying I'm not even talking double digits. I'm just saying not 150 yards, not 180 yards. Like, that's where the Saints have been living. The last week they gave up 180 yards, over 90 rushing yards, I believe it was, to 2 different backs in that game. And so you got to make sure that you're helping to limit that run game as best as you can. It's not eliminating it. It's just simply trying to damage control as best as you can. So I think doing that puts them in a situation, if they're able to produce and move the football on the opposite side, you're forcing the hand of Kevin Stefanski and the Cleveland Browns to throw the football. And then you can, like any team, it doesn't even matter that it's Jameis Winston on the other side. Any team is going to have a better chance against their opposition if their opposition is throwing 30, 40 times a game. It's just high variance for mistakes, all those other things. It's not even about Jameis in that situation. I do think that you want to make sure that this team is playing all 4 quarters. I think we saw a great example of that last week. Even though the offense trickled down in the second half, 5 of their 6 possessions were 3 and outs in the second half. So it was really the defense that kept them in the game. But man, 2 straight plays, 2 back-to-back plays. They had the perfect play call and the perfect moment, but one player on each of those plays, they came up one player short. Taliesin Fuanga, the rookie left tackle, who's going to be matched up with Myles Garrett a lot. He climbed up to the second level, but missed a block on a second level linebacker that ended up being able to move over the top and fill a hole where there was a wide open rushing lane for a big breakaway run for Taysom Hill that would have iced that game. And in the very next play was the fade route down the left sideline of Alvin Kamara, where he just inexplicably dropped a wide open pass, called it the lamest thing he's ever done in his life in a football game. When we talked to him after the game, he was very funny about it. But it was the 111th Darren Rizzi talks about. Yeah, everybody's got to do their job, and I think that they came up short on that in some big places last week on offense. You like to see them be able to play all 4 quarters this week, so that they're not putting that defense back out there and instead icing it with the offense on the field. And then finally, just not beating yourself, right? Like those 2 examples could have been examples that we point back to and say, well, they beat themselves because they weren't able to complete those plays. Thankfully, the defense was able to close it out. But you look at a team that has been one that has suffered self-inflicted wounds early, and that has completely set the tone for the rest of the game. They have to avoid that here against Cleveland.
It's, and it's so weird when you get games like this because both teams could not play well. Both teams could play very well. One team, maybe not. I mean, you have no idea. And these are the most difficult games to basically kind of predict. And look, it is a little early in this week, but I think we do. Obviously, you guys are down 2 big playmakers at wide receiver. The Browns, this is who they are and basically going to be for the rest of the team, the season. It's, a couple of big names, and it's going to be a whole bunch of role players trying to create, more, for themselves. Just so to sit here and for 2 of us to try to sound like we are super educated and can tell you exactly how this game is going to go. I mean, it could be 10-9. It could be 33-32. There is no way. And the only other most recent thing you have to go off to was 2 years ago on Christmas Eve when the game was played in about negative 37 degrees.
Right.
So, I mean, that's the only thing. And even in 2 years, I mean, a lot of major players have changed in that time as well. But it's, we're looking forward to